All right, so the video featuring UFO whistleblower Jake Barber coming out on News Nation, right, detailing all of his encounters, which I've covered on the main channel. Go check that out. You know, the UFO crash recovery video that they show. Also, what about being, again, I say this with all due respect. These are his words, right? Encountering a flying disc and being possessed by a beautiful spirit akin to God. Those are his words. Having a profound experience there, right? Also, revealing his new sort of company that he has called Skywatcher, where, he's creating this private UFO crash recovery team filled with members that have sort of psionic abilities that can connect through consciousness with UFOs, right? And even make them crash and come down, right? And, a lot more in that special, to be honest with you. Threats on his life, other missions he ran, other, different veterans kind of sticking up for him and also agreeing that they've been on some of these missions themselves. I mean, there's a lot in this episode, to be honest with you. So please go check that out. But this video is Ross Coulthart responding to all of those claims, and kind of this is post video, right? So once the video comes out, he goes on News Nation and talks about everything and actually adds a lot of context and things that were not in that main video. So I highly recommend checking out this interview. It's basically Ross's response to the special that went out, right? So stick around and watch it to the end. It also includes a statement I put at the end from the Pentagon in response to a lot of these claims, and you'll see that at the end. So, all right, y'all, enjoy.
Ross, it is good to see you again, and I know that you spoke with Mr. Barber right before this aired tonight. How is he feeling about coming forward with this? Is he anxious at all about how his claims will be received tonight? Do you think he's right to be nervous?
Hello again, Natasha. He's not anxious, no. In fact, I'm quite impressed. He's one of those guys who performs well under stress while the rest of us are chewing our fingernails. What I can tell you is he's waiting to see how people respond, because there are a lot of people like him, tier one operators in the military, who frankly have had a guts full of the government lying to the public about this. They think it's time the public knew. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see, with the caliber of people that support Jake Barber. These are top former tier one operators who are well known and highly respected in the JSOC community, in the Joint Special Operations Command community. They're highly well known people, hugely respected. And I think there's going to be a lead taken by these people seeing what Jake Barber has done. I think it's inevitable, frankly, that more people are going to come forward now. And I think Congress needs to wake up. It needs to decide whether it's going to properly investigate this issue, because, as Mr. Barber told us, he went to the Senate Intelligence Committee with this information and gave this information to staffers associated with one of the more prominent senators, who will, of course, now be in the new administration. And it's a real test of what the incoming Trump administration will do to see if they actually take these allegations seriously. Mr. Barber wants to be investigated. He wants to be tested. He wants Congress to put him under oath in public and test his allegations. And there are multiple people, both people you've seen in this story and people behind the scenes, who want to come forward and back his claims.
Yeah, he welcomes the scrutiny. And I want to bring up that video again, this never-before-seen video of the alleged UFO crash retrieval. Ross, can you talk us through it? Can you break it down for us? What makes this so remarkable?
We've known for years from reports, even those held by the US government, that there are egg-shaped craft objects that have been seen by prominent, reputable witnesses, military officials, senior scientists, and a lot of these have been seen and reported on ranges such as Area 51, China Lake, and a lot of the Los Alamos nuclear laboratories. You'll find those in the historical record. What's interesting is, for years, I've been talking to people who've been telling me that these eggs are one of the more common shapes that you see of these alleged NHI craft. And it's fascinating to finally see one on video, confirmed provenance. I'm aware of where this video has come from. It did not come, by the way, from Mr. Barber. He had absolutely nothing to do with this. It came from other sources who are aware of the recovery operations on the range and who provided with this as direct evidence of the eggs that are and routinely are being procured on the range. And I guess ultimately, people may be sceptical. I don't really care, because ultimately Mr. Barber is saying, and I've seen him do it, that they are now in a position where they can do their own summoning, and the hell with the Defence Department. They're going to go ahead with private retrievals themselves and do it as an independent commercial enterprise. They believe strongly that the public has the right to know this information, and they think if the Defence Department's going to maintain the cover-up, then let's just walk on by them and get on with it and start doing the work ourselves.
Okay, and I want to talk more about the alleged cover-up in just a moment, but one of the most shocking claims from this whistleblower, he believes he was possessed during a retrieval. Let's take a quick listen to this together.
There was this overwhelming sense of emotion.
Is it your feeling? Are you suddenly having a mental breakdown on the job?
No, I felt like something connected with me. Once it was just me and that object in between the pick and the drop site, there was about 20 miles in between, I felt like something was inside of me. I felt like I was possessed by the most beautiful spirit I'd ever been possessed by.
He's emotional here. Ross, what do you make of these claims? Because it really struck me. You even asked him in the middle of this interview, were you having a mental breakdown on the job? Do you believe that Mr. Barber is credible, that he is sound of mind?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. No, I've got no doubt at all. I mean, Mr. Barber has been running operations for a very prominent aerospace company on a very, very secure military range right up until very, very recently. I'm sure he has passed all of the scrutiny and tests that have been provided by the government to ensure that the right people are in the job. I have spoken over many years now to many people who are experiencers, particularly, interestingly enough, Tier 1 operators, people who've operated at the very elite of special forces, and not just in America. A lot of these soldiers have had these encounters, these sensations. And frankly, what's fascinating is all of them describe them as profoundly life-changing spiritual experiences. And I know people might giggle and laugh at such an idea, but I think we are on the edge, Natasha, of a profound paradigm shift in human understanding of the phenomenon. We are about, I think, to find out the full truth about what these UAPs are. I think it's inevitable. It might take months, it might take years. I suspect it's taking months. But I think eventually what we're going to find is that there is a very strong link between spiritual ideas, human consciousness, and the phenomenon of unidentified aerial phenomena. There is a definite psychic connection that is made with the phenomena, and this has been reported over many, many decades by countless thousands of witnesses. It's not a rare phenomenon. It happens all the time.
It's heady stuff, Ross, and I want to ask, because we've talked about the fact that these whistleblowers you've spoken with are not just risking their reputations. Sometimes they feel they're risking their safety as well, and I know there have been some cases, allegations, people have been killed to cover this up. Ross, who would be trying to cover this up and why?
It's quite clear from the story that we've just aired that there's been, how do we say this politely, there's been scraps, there's been fights inside these operations. I suspect it's rival private aerospace companies competing for access to technology, or perhaps factions inside those companies. But what Mr. Barber and his colleagues believe is that they were targeted either by somebody in their employer or by somebody purporting to be their employer who essentially double-crossed them. As you'll see, we haven't gone into a lot of the detail of what happened out of respect for certain security issues, but basically this needs to be investigated. I mean, I've spoken to people who've told me about JSOC operatives, soldiers, patriotic soldiers with the American military being murdered, shot in the course of these operations. And these events have been covered up, I'm told. I don't know who's running this operation, but it sounds to me like it's gone rogue. And I really think the absurd thing about this is we're at an interesting situation here where the Pentagon is muddling its way through in this quite clownish, Cousteau-ish way, claiming that there's no basis to any of this and just describing Mr. Barber's allegations as claims. I can tell you there is a conga line of witnesses who are going to come forward because the Pentagon is playing stick in the mud. They had better wake up to themselves and realise that events have moved on. The era when you could basically cover things up by using tame masthead media to stop stories from getting out is well and truly over. There are millions of people who are not buying it, and there are countless thousands of people inside the program or people who are aware of the program who want this issue to be exposed because, frankly, they think it's untenable for millions and probably billions of dollars to be expended by the American taxpayer on programs and projects that they have absolutely no knowledge of, that have been improperly, illegally kept secret from them.
And Ross, Barber revealed that he has met with Senator Marco Rubio's staff about the alleged UFO retrieval program. Now, Rubio could very soon be the Secretary of State. What does this mean for the future of UFO information?
Well, as you know, I had a direct conversation with Donald Trump Jr. earlier this week where I put it to him that his dad's got an opportunity here. I mean, the new president has a mandate. He has a mandate to investigate this issue because, frankly, it's there. The evidence has been there sitting inside the Congress before various committees, the Armed Services Committee, the Intelligence Committee, and essentially it's a matter for the staffers to get their political representatives wound up about it. What's been happening is the politicians are timid. They're frightened of engaging with this directly because they're worried about blowback. And it's not because they don't believe it. I've spoken to some of these politicians who've told me they know there is a legacy program. What they're worried about is getting involved in it and then getting bitten by the national security industry because they're all terrified of offending campaign funding. What this is all about is not offending the hand that feeds you. So many politicians are compromised by defence spending, and the biggest lobby in Congress is the Defence Department and the intelligence community. And when President Eisenhower warned at the end of his administration that the military-industrial complex was a threat that needed to be reckoned with, he really did know what he was talking about. And 70 years later, it's come home to roost. Jake Barber and many other people are alleging to me that there is a cabal inside the national security complex. I suspect President Trump would call it a deep state, but the evidence of this deep state is there to be found if Congress bothers to look. And what are we voting for these political representatives for if they don't show some courage and get out there and start doing the digging that's needed? We need a public inquiry to put these witnesses in a public hearing and have them deposed and questioned under oath. And Mr. Barber is prepared to do that, and so are all of his colleagues. And the Defence Department seems to be maintaining the impression that it can just go on lying through its teeth about this, and frankly, it's time to call them out. They are lying, and it's time they were exposed.
Oh, wow. Okay, Ross, we appreciate it. I know that public interest could not be higher in this topic, and I appreciate the level to which you have continued to pursue this more than 2 years now on this specific story, and so much is unfolding every time we speak with you. Ross Coulthart, appreciate you and your reporting as always. Thank you.
Thank you.